right. Welcome to episode 1X9 of The Heroes You Deserve. My name is Henry.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Richard.
And the topic for this podcast, we're going to discuss The Walking Dead. That's right. So it's kind of the focus is going to be more on the recent season finale, but I think we'll probably just talk about a little bit of everything. And so I will admit, I'm a little familiar with the comic books. I think I've read about 2 or 3 trade paperbacks. I've only seen season 1, so I'm not going to be too much involved in the discussion, but I've read a little bit over the internet, especially in the recent episode, of some of the critiques of the episode. So I won't be involved as much, but these guys watch the show and have much to say. Right, so where should we start off? I mean, this is all on y'all now. So where's a good starting point here for this podcast?
All right, I'll jump on this.
Grenade.
So yeah, I want to preface this by saying that I've been a Walking Dead apologist for the entire run. I was the first to rush to its defense whenever someone said it was boring, all talking. You were among those people.
You were a defender, I remember.
Yeah, and my arguments usually felt sound. You know, your complaints had merit, and I felt that my counterpoints equally had merit. Some of his complaints were obviously that the show was too verbose, that not enough happened, they protected the core cast. All of these things are true. But there were also some of the things I liked. You know, there was a sense of safety in some of the characters that you cared about, where in certain other shows like Game of Thrones are really, you know, George R. R. Martin's writing doesn't allow you to get attached to anybody.
Nobody's safe.
Exactly. It's like naming a farm animal.
But the beauty of
it's going to end horribly.
But the beauty of that is that even though you know, especially after the first season, that nobody's safe, you still find yourself caring about characters.
You can't help it.
That's the genius of it.
It's just good writing.
Which show are we talking about here?
Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
And honestly, Walking Dead felt like that to me at first. Season 1 was very, you know, getting to know you. You know, we found out there was conflict between, you know, Rick and Shane, and, you know, even conflict between his wife that was like underlying, you know.
Who is Judith Stad? But moving on.
Yeah, exactly. But this season,
Which is what number?
season 6,
Yeah.
has like lost me. Between the obvious fake death of Glenn and now this horrible season finale, unforgivable season finale.
I mean, even I'm not a fan, and I've just read all of the hype leading up to the season finale and the introduction of Negan.
Negan
Right?
is the name of the character that they
Okay.
introduce. Brilliantly cast, by the way. That was a good move.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey
right?
Dean Morgan, the comedian himself.
Well,
that was
a nice little trivia bit that should not be lost on anyone at this table, but both Thomas and Martha Wayne were in that shot in the finale. Just
Right.
so you know.
that is right.
Lauren Cohen and...
That actually did get past me, so thank you for that.
So
again,
somewhere in the melee, little Bruce Wayne will be born at some point.
you'd hate to think it was in that that field, but I don't know how much further I want to go without letting Rich take a swing at this.
Sure.
So let me wrap up this opening segment by saying that this season, and specifically this last episode, used cheap techniques to get a reaction. This is the equivalent of a jump scare in a horror movie.
But whose fault is it? Is it the director, the writer, the network?
There's a lot of blame to throw around.
There's plenty to go around. Gimple did a horrible job writing this. Used cheap techniques to get a pop. You know, this is you know, the good guy in pro wrestling chanting USA and getting the crowd to get behind him because he's fighting the evil foreigner guy. This is the equivalent of that. This is Make America Great Again. This is, you know, catchphrases that people can chant and you like. That's what this sort of finale is. It's like, ooh, I know how to make everybody watch again. Let's show them nothing. Let's say we're gonna, and then not, and then they'll watch next season. I'm gonna get heated, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass this over.
The sad thing for me is I'm not a comic reader I don't know anything about the comics. I have a friend that tells me, this character's dead already. This one doesn't exist already, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But there have been glimpses of interesting themes and story points that I think, in the hands of someone capable, would have made for a really great show. This has gone through, I think, 3 showrunners or 4. It started off with Frank Darabont, who adapted it originally, and we can lay some blame on him, but not really. The first season is still my favorite season.
He left why? Why did he leave?
Well, apparently, this is the story that I had read was this. Do you remember the tank in, I think, the pilot, where Rick comes into the city and he finds an abandoned tank and he gets swarmed by the walkers?
Yeah, and then Glenn talks him out of the situation.
Yeah, and he gets into the tank and there's like a dead body in there.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay, well, Darabont's plan was for season 2, once they went to the CDC at the end of season 1 and they realized that they were all infected and they walked off, season 2 was going to start off from the perspective of one of the soldiers in that tank. And it was going to work its way through that point or whatever. And AMC said, no, let's just scrap that. And they just wound up spending the entire second season at Herschel's farm. And then everything else kind of changed. And so Darabont left. And Darabont can be partly to blame. Darabont created the whole Merle and Daryl phenomenon. Those 2 characters, from what I understand, don't exist in the comics.
They do not.
At the very least, Daryl does not exist in the comics. And look, I am all for popular characters. I think, characters can be popular for whatever reason. I don't understand why Daryl is so popular. He really doesn't do anything on this show. And the reason why he doesn't do anything on the show is because he doesn't exist in the books and they actually have nothing for him to do. I mean, there's, if now when Gimple came in, I think at the end of season 4, 5, and 6, I think Gimple's been doing it. He said, well, we're going to take it back to the comics because it kind of veered off. The whole governor storyline was different. Somehow Judith survived when she shouldn't have. Somehow, Carol became a badass, which he's not. And so all of these things have changed. And so now Gimple comes in and says, well, let's go back to the go back to the core.
Even I know that I don't think you should stick too much to the comic, but
and that's fine
because you want a little. Look, you don't want people who read the comics say, "Oh, I know what's going to happen."
And
you want a little change.
There's nothing wrong with that, but if you have a character that's so popular, give him something. The only thing they did, and it made no sense to me, and I was with the show for a while. I was with the show for a while, was when they kind of started fostering this kind of partnership between Daryl and Beth. And I kind of like the pairing, and I don't know if it was a romantic pairing. I don't know if it was a big brother, a little sister pairing, but it was an interesting pairing.
I kind of think it was a ladder,
Yeah, I really thought that she's the one, not Carol, but that she's the one that kind of brought him out of his shell a little bit. And then they just disappeared her. They kidnapped her, and for no other purpose than to kill her. And then the response was, well, you see, this is a dangerous place. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a dangerous place if you're a red shirt, but let's kill Daryl and see how dangerous this place is. Let's see how it affects Daryl. How many episodes did we see it affect Daryl? Maybe 1 episode, 2 at the most.
He was grumpy for a couple episodes, and then we were done with that.
And he's always been, and he's just grumpy. He's fixing his bike. He's wandering off. He hunts. He grunts.
I get what people like. He's the anti-hero.
But in what
he's sort
way?
of the devil may care guy, but he does not live up to the potential of his character.
Rick is more of an anti-hero.
It's the potential of his character I think people are in love with. It's the idea of this, rough and tumble biker guy,
the
kind
idea
of a loner, but somehow he's found it in his heart to want to protect this group.
And that's
the dynamic between him and Beth was great because
it was great.
He really had something to do.
Yes, it gave him something to do.
It's like, okay, my job is to
protect
motivation. It's to protect this young girl and make sure she's okay because she makes me want to be a better version of me.
And
that's
they got along. They got along. They had conversations.
They were drinking buddies.
They were drinking buddies. It was fun to. I mean, I enjoyed those scenes.
And we got one episode of that.
Yeah, one whole episode of that. And then she was gone. And then where did she go? And then she gets killed in the stupidest way possible.
Could you imagine that later down the line, if somewhere in the story somebody messed with Beth, you'd be like, oh shit, what's he gonna do to him now? Because they don't even know.
Right.
That's cool. That's something I can get behind. Now you're right. He's just
And so it's
he's
frustrating.
a one-man OCC.
Yeah, so it's frustrating because there are elements that I like. I did like that. There are some elements. I like as corny as it is, I like the Abraham, Eugene, Rosita kind of little dynamic that those three characters introduced. I'm not a fan of Sasha. I wasn't really a fan of the Tyrese kind of thing. It was just too.
Is the Abraham speaking in maxims now? Just is that his thing?
He's got some good ones,
He does, but that's his primary method of communication now. It's like if your one-liners were the only way you knew how to communicate with us.
He is the king of the one-liner.
He is Bumblebee. Now he's Bumblebee.
What was the other one? We're neck deep in shit and with our mouths open or something like that.
Yeah, we're neck deep in shit with our mouths open.
Yeah, he's got some great ones.
They're quotable. They're awesome. But honestly, nobody talks like that always.
But he's entertaining. But there's a bigger problem underneath, and there's so many core characters that are beloved.
Well, it's an ensemble, right?
Well, it is, but none of them have a whole lot to do.
How are we not okay with killing a ginger? America,
we should be okay with.
Why are you not okay with killing gingers?
And here's the ultimate problem that I have with this. So I find out, and like I said, I'm not a comic reader, but I find out that, well, one, Daryl doesn't exist in the books. Two, Abraham should have died instead of Denise. Why they didn't kill him, I don't know. But again, if you're going to choose to keep a character that in the comics is already dead, what is he going to do? What is his... I mean, yes, I understand we don't have to copy the comic, but at least it gives us some inspiration. Are you giving someone else's arc to him? Because that's what happens in Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, there have been times when there's way too many characters, and they only have 10 episodes to work with, that they streamline certain characters and give those storylines to a certain character. But here, what are they giving him other than him now going to Sasha? Which, okay, fine, but who cares? Who really cares?
If they're going to use that, and they alluded to it a little bit to create some sort of tension between Sasha and Rosita.
It didn't seem like... I think Rosita's moved on.
Well, Rosita was shooting laser beams at her.
Well, for one episode.
The shift change for about that long.
Yeah, and then now we're all...
okay. Well,
now we're all going to go fight off together, it's... Look, there's ideas, I could see maybe in the writer's room, they come up with these ideas and goes, let's put this down, we'll write this in the episode. And then when it actually gets executed, it falls flat.
They plan out the season, though, right?
Of course they do. But it's just...
I don't know, I feel like they're throwing spaghetti against the wall.
And so now the worst possible thing could happen. So here, now we come to the Negan reveal. We all know, everybody from the comics knows it. They've been waiting for Lucille. They've foreshadowed it, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, are they going to kill Glenn? Now are they going to kill Glenn for real because he's the one that gets it in the comics? Are they going to do that? No, they already faked it out. They had two fake outs with Glenn. The one under the dumpster and then the one in the wall when the wolves came in and he got surrounded and all of a sudden he's like, the wolf saved them, or I don't know how he got saved, or no, who came in?
It was
somebody came in. Abraham came in or something and saved them all.
That's right. It was Abraham ex machina.
Yes, like he was about to get eaten again, and we're like, oh really, Glenn again? And all of a sudden he's saved again. So this is now the third time. Is this the real time? Are they going to kill him? And why didn't they just show it? What was the point of not showing who Negan killed? I don't understand the point of that. Are they still trying to decide? Are they still coming up with some kind of an idea? You know what? Let's just see what the fan reaction is, and we'll show it in the premiere.
Right, and I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
So, I guess, who is Negan? I mean, who would be the best person to explain? I mean, those who are familiar with the comic. What is the big fuss about Negan? Explain it to me.
He's Rick.
How far ahead have you read?
I don't read the comics.
Okay,
I've been told, but he's essentially Rick.
That's actually not the worst explanation I've heard of him.
Even Kirkman on The Walking Dead, and thank God for The Walking Dead, because if you don't understand anything on the episode, they'll explain it for you.
The Talking Dead, you mean?
I'm sorry, The Talking Dead. They'll explain it for you on that show. But he came on the finale, and he said that his inspiration for Negan was to look at Rick from the perspective of a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does one look as Rick as a villain? And you get Negan. Because everything that Negan is doing or has done or is about to do, Rick's probably already done it at some point. I mean, that assault on the compound was pretty vicious. Stabbing people as they slept. I mean, that was a pretty vicious assault.
There's a point to which I agree with that, but in the comics there is another where there's a very distinct departure from Rick's character.
I'm
I
sure,
absolutely see the parallel drawn because, yeah, he brought a group together, civilized them, found a system that worked, and held it together for a long while, it appears.
Yeah, they're very well organized.
Negan,
yeah,
yes.
Negan. They're very well organized, and they have a lot of numbers. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah, but where he went off the rails is he lost, and I don't know if it matters in a post-apocalyptic world, the morality that Rick has. Because Rick's is a cop. He was a sheriff.
Well,
a sheriff's deputy.
I also think though that, and I don't know anything about the comics, but if Rick still has morality that Negan does not have, I think it's just the structure of the group around him. Because Negan doesn't have a group in the same sense that Rick does. Rick has...
He's close to no one.
Exactly. He's got followers. He's got... I understand the way he keeps people alive and they have a mission, you work for me, that kind of thing. But Rick has contemporaries. I mean, he has Carol, or he has Carol, Morgan, even Daryl to a degree, Michonne, Carl, all these characters that have kind of kept him... Coral, that have kept him in check to some degree, that have kept him holding on to his humanity, right? So Negan just did not have that. But if Rick didn't have that, he could have very easily had been that character.
100%, yeah. I could see that. So Negan is Rick gone wrong.
Without a support structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like me. If you give me superpowers, I'm gonna do the worst possible thing. I'm gonna be blowing up people in traffic to cut me off, punching people's heads off that say things I don't like.
Don't kill people.
That would definitely... I would escalate to that. I'm saying that's where I would go. So you couldn't give me any kind of powers, and you couldn't turn me loose on a post-apocalyptic world where I had any kind of sway over people, because I'd make them do bad things. I'd like to think I'm a good person, but if you turn any one of us, normal jackasses loose, part of us is going to want to do the right thing, but I think the lizard brain that wants to survive is eventually going to win and make us do the thing that we thought we never could. So that's sort of where Negan lives, but he kept his wits about him, so he's every bit as crafty and horrible as he was as a normal citizen of the world before the apocalypse. Only now, there's nothing tethering him down. And I've only read as far as his introduction and the aftermath that ensues. So I know what should happen next season. But I kind of pumped the brakes there because I didn't want to get too far ahead of the show.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't even know why I still watch the show. I watch the show just so I can have, just so if people are talking about it.
Are you hate watching it?
I don't know that I'm hate watching it, but I was really I've been disappointed with the show for a while. I really have. I think for me, the breaking point for me was when Beth was killed, because I thought, look, I have no problem killing characters, and like I said, I am probably the biggest Game of Thrones fan. And when they kill a character, there's a reason.
I think that's when the formula was revealed.
I think so.
At long last, the formula was revealed. Whenever someone starts being the little shining beacon of hope on the show, I instantly say it. And my wife can attest to this. I just go, he did.
Yeah.
He did. When Abraham was doing the all hugging up on gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Mullet.
Eugene,
yes, when he was hugging up on Eugene and they're doing their happy, sad, goodbyes, like, I could do my own thing now, and,
I thought he was
I'm like, oh, you're a goner. You're both goners. They're going to kill you both. You're dead. You're happy. Nobody gets to be happy in this world. You're going to die.
And that's kind of... I don't know. I
think now they know we're on to them, and they're not killing people out of spite.
You see, but I don't know if I want to...
And they killed
I don't want to...
right?
I don't want to...
They killed a lesbian.
Right?
Yeah, they did.
It's a unicorn in the apocalypse, and they killed it.
Shame
on you.
I don't want to start comparing Walking Dead to Game of Thrones, because to me it's apples and rotten oranges. But when you have a character die in a show like Game of Thrones, it pushes everything forward. There's the consequences, and things happen, and it can literally
cause and effect.
It can literally shift the direction of an entire season for everybody. I mean, and it did that several times. And I never got the feeling in Game of Thrones that someone was being killed to remind me that this was a cruel world. We always knew it was a cruel world. Every episode reminds us of that. But it always seems like the go-to answer when someone sort of quasi important dies in Walking Dead, it's like, well, this just reminds us that this is a cruel world. It's not. It's perfectly safe for Rick. It's perfectly safe for Daryl. It's perfectly safe for Carol. It's a perfectly safe world unless you're not.
All it tells me is that actor had a shitty agent.
Yeah, and I am not convinced. Please don't convince me that this is the same thing. It seems more. It just seems like hey, look, they kill characters over there on that show, and it just drives fans crazy. Let's just start killing characters on our show. I don't have a problem with you doing that, but give it a purpose, and I really, really they lost me when they killed Beth. I dare anybody to challenge what the purpose of her death was and how it changed anybody, because I think after 3 episodes, nobody even talked about her. Maggie kind of sort of brings her up, sort of, but it's just, she was gone, and she was I thought she was a promising character. So now we have Negan show up, and everybody is expecting Daryl. Glenn. I'm going to give them one thing, though. It was a very tense sequence, okay? And I did not expect myself to get tensed up, because at some point, you just tense up because somebody's going to die, and you just don't know which one it is. I don't know that it was like, oh no, not Daryl, or oh no, not Glenn, because at this point, I only really care about a couple of characters, and neither one of them are it. I care about Maggie.
Here's where we went, because we spent the whole first part of the episode, the whole first 2/3 of the episode.
Right.
Let's
driving around in circles.
It's 4/5 of the episode.
6/7 of the episode.
Driving around
in circles, not
getting that. Oh, after maybe the second one, I think they're gonna try and trap us. How about we go home?
And of all of the places, that they got off in the RV, that group just happened to be waiting at that spot in the woods. I mean, were they being tracked? Was there some kind of satellite? Did they have thermal imaging?
Well, I kind of got the impression that Eugene sold them out. Like, they went in that direction.
I really seriously doubt.
But into a perfect clearing in the forest, they all happened to gather.
Right. With vehicles,
they're prepared. These guys have been on foot. Somehow they didn't hear any of this happen.
And it just so happened that Rick walking, we just stumbled upon just bad luck.
Oh, they start with the whistling.
Yeah,
I guess it's supposed to create tension, and I understand that as a plot device, but Jesus.
It was just, yeah.
Even since I am not a reader or a watcher, even I know there was a lot of hype leading up to the introduction of Negan and the season finale, and that the fans are really going to be left hanging. And from what I've read, a lot of people came away from this episode disappointed.
Well,
rightly so.
Angry. Because they showed, he did the whole eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and everything was straight from the comics. I've seen they did the comparison, and it was done quite well. It really was, and there was tension. But there was also some giveaways, lines that he said, like, if he moves, talking about Coral, if he moves, take his other eye out and feed it to his dad. So right there, he had already decided Carl's safe and Rick's safe. Okay? So we know those two are going to be. Now, as a writer, who cares if, what's that guy's name? I always forget his name. Adam, or what's his name? The guy that insisted on coming along because he wants to help. The one that brought him to Alexandria in the first place.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to kill him. Eugene, or is everybody going to get devastated if Eugene dies? I probably would get devastated if Rosita dies, because I just want her to have some kind of redemption. I think if any character has the potential to have some kind of redemptive story, it's her. Because they really just shit all over her. And she trained everybody. I mean, they kind of showed her training people. And now she's just kind of, again, just another character in the background. They do have interesting characters set up. They just don't do anything with them. And so kill Glenn. He's had his moment in the sun. I mean, you know what? Yes, they did it in the comic. If it pushes Maggie to do something, I mean, she's near death anyway. Kill Glenn and let's just move on. But no, when they cut to the camera and they show Negan first person, and they just show him whacking at the camera, and there's blood trickling, and the camera falls over, and we never see who he kills.
A cameraman, apparently.
Fade to black. He killed the cameraman.
Killed the cameraman. Shame on you, Negan. But the build-up to what was one of the most iconic scenes in the comic.
Correct.
Is now gone. No one will get to experience
wasted.
that.
And you don't think the identity of the person that gets killed won't be leaked between now and October?
Yeah, of course it will.
You don't think it'll be all over the
But
internet?
did they film it, or was it just kind of open?
No, they didn't film the actual guy getting hit.
Right.
It was just him hitting the camera,
Sure, right,
and then
okay.
it faded to black, and it was just crunch, crunch, gurgle, crunch, crunch, credits.
But again, not as a fan, but I mean, all the deaths that have happened so far, have they been ruined by spoilers before?
This isn't a spoiler, though. I mean, what are you spoiling? Just kill the guy and move on. Show the reaction and
Yeah,
season.
but you didn't know who died. I mean, all the people who've died this past season, you didn't know beforehand up until you watched the episode, correct? Or am I...
Well, I mean, for the comic readers, it was clear who should be the one.
Right.
But
Everybody knew that there would be a
the
death.
whole reason that there was any kind of tension at all is that they're playing pretty fast and loose with the story, and
Right.
you know, with the death of Denise instead of Abraham,
Yeah, and
the
for
possibility
and
open
also
for them, like, okay, well, maybe we're not sticking strictly to canon. Who is he going to kill?
and
then?
and also the death of Beth. I think that's what scared me more. I was actually I was scared for Rosita. I was like, just don't kill her or Maggie, because I like both of them. You know, you just don't kill them. I don't care. I honestly don't care who else you kill. Kill Rick. I don't care.
Michonne, you gonna miss Michonne? She's a lot like Daryl. Not a whole lot to do.
There's not a whole lot to do.
Only everybody, the internet's in love with the coupling, apparently.
and that's fine.
Which
But
is, okay.
but nothing
Is
happens.
she the Mary Sue of The Walking Dead?
Well, no,
No, she's gonna head it pretty
she's
bad.
there's no real Mary Sue.
She's failing upward.
There's no real Mary Sue on this show, but it's just, you know, and for me, I don't know, like, what is this guy doing? What is Gimple doing? I don't know what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. If they wanted to kill Glenn, they could have done it before.
Well, it's good. It's good that you don't know what they're doing, because you're left at the edge of your seat, anxious to see what's going to happen next.
You would think.
Right?
You would think, but let's see what implications. Again, they did this with Beth. It didn't mean anything. What did it mean for Denise to die? Nothing.
Fuck all. Well,
it
to be fair,
it drew Daryl out of the complex.
no. Here's what it did. So yes, it did do that, but it gave them the reason to have to leave for medical attention for Maggie, because they
Right.
lost their doctor.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
So the whole reason for the whole gang to get in that,
The whole reason why they got
Stupid-
captured was because they changed the death from Abraham to Denise. Thank you, writers. Way to write your way out of that one.
Right. And thank you, because I think that about wraps up our show, episode 1X, The Walking Dead discussion. And as you can see, we're a little bit riled up, and
We're all
that's
bunched up.
the way they left you hanging. We're gonna leave you hanging. So feel free to comment below, and then
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you all have plenty to say about this. Some of you probably like the show, and we're willing to hear your arguments. Let us know how you felt about it. Defend your position.
Right.
We're willing to have that conversation. I mean, show us something that maybe we missed or an angle we're not looking at. But from a narrative perspective, just cutting us off at the knees like that was just bad storytelling. So,
And also, come to us as a person who never watches The Talking Dead, because I think that show helps Walking Dead a lot by explaining things to people that really aren't very clear when you watch the episode. And that if it wasn't for that show, I think a lot of people would be in the dark most of the time. So to be fair, they are helped by that show. And if you don't watch The Talking Dead and don't have all this extra insight, I think you would be just as... I mean, I watch it, but I know it's just a publicity. It's just a commercial for The Walking Dead. But there's a lot of just free passes. So
Yes.
anyway,
let's hear it below. Let's hear it all. Let's have it.
follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. So again, thank you very much, and see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
there you go. That'd be the actual mic
Poor
scene.
Richard. Mike.
Scene.
Think. You're the worst.
Yeah.
I hate you.